What's up, guys? My name is Rob Epifania. I'm a USPSA Grandmaster, and I'm the owner of Systematic Performance Concepts. In this video, we're going to talk about what needs to happen in order to have the gun behave well from a firing hand perspective. Now, what needs to happen and what you might do can be a little bit different, and we'll talk about that at the end of this video. But we're going to talk about what needs to happen in order to get the best control when it comes to your firing hand. Now, a lot of times, right-handed shooters, low left, left-handed shooters, low right. A lot of that comes down to firing hand tension. And what we mean by that is as you're shooting, you start to tense up your firing hand and push the gun low left. This usually happens because you don't feel 100% confident that you are going to be able to absorb and control the recoil that's about to happen. Anytime that happens, your firing hand is directly attached to the gun and it is going to try to stop recoil. And when we try to stop recoil, that's when we get all sorts of errant hits, your common low left, and a lot of tension-oriented issues. So, with that said, in my online lessons, in my courses, one of the things I talk about is what needs to happen in order to have the gun behave properly, okay? From a minimalist perspective. Now, we see the gun is sitting in the hand here. Right now, it's just resting on my hand. I'm not gripping it at all, okay? If you watch this part of the grip, you're gonna see that the gun moves around in the hand, okay? All I have to do is start gripping hard enough that that doesn't happen. So now the gun is connected. You see it's not moving that much anymore. With that said, if you think about a great analogy for that, imagine someone comes over and gives you that wet noodle, loose, like wet fish handshake, that real soft handshake. I'm sure most of the people watching this video can probably understand what I'm talking about. And it's a very uncomfortable feeling. But that's a great analogy to use for how hard we actually have to grip the gun. With the firing hand, not much. It doesn't have to be much, okay? Now, you guys see the gun is not moving in the hand, but watch my wrist joint here. See how my wrist joint is moving? So the gun itself is tight in the hand, but the wrist is flopping up and down. That also causes a lot of issues because if the wrist joint is unlocking, you're going to get this very erratic muzzle path when it comes to recoil. The muzzle is going to want to rise up and your wrist is going up and down. And anytime you feel that you're not handling recoil well, you're going to start to push hard on the gun. Just what's going to happen. So we have to be able to stiffen the wrist joint through the use of the forearm muscles here. And the way I personally do it that works well for me is that I apply a little bit of pressure towards the bottom two fingers, ring and pinky finger. And you guys can see here, this starts to activate the forearm, the bottom forearm here. And now the gun is locking in place. Okay, so now when I do this, you see the entire gun and the entire arm structure is all moving as one. With that said, also the gun position in the hand is super important. So if you trace your forearm bone up into the palm, that's position is where I want the backstrap to sit if possible. Because if I could do that, now when I apply this pressure, stiffen the wrist up, and now the backstrap is fully supported, now the gun isn't going to move very much. Doesn't matter how hard I press the trigger, the gun is not going to move much. If it's not, and you're trying to do the same things, you're going to see the muzzle move a lot, and that's typically up and to the right for a right-handed shooter. Those are the things that need to happen, and that grip with the ring and pinky finger is not much harder than that wet noodle handshake. So if I can wet noodle handshake a little bit better, that's enough to do what you need to do in terms of the firing hand and recoil control. The support hand is what does most of the recoil control through the function of gripping hard. But the firing hand doesn't have to do much. Now, how hard do we want to grip it? That's how hard you need to. How hard do we want to? At that point, what I've found with working with thousands of people is that part is subjective. It's subjective to what makes you feel mentally comfortable that the gun isn't going to move around on you. If you feel mentally comfortable that the gun's not going to move around, you're not going to increase or decrease pressure while you're shooting. You're going to hold that pressure still, and that's all it's going to be. I'll demonstrate this where I'll press the trigger for people. When they don't know the gun's going to go off, when it's going to go off, and their job is just to hold still, it's fine. But if they think the gun's going to go off at a certain point, and they don't think they're gripping the gun tight enough for it, they're going to push on the gun. So what I tell people, as tight or as loose as you need to in order to feel that you're able to manage recoil properly and that you don't feel the need to tense up. People will start off, you tell them relax their firing hand, and they will, but they don't really trust it. So when they don't trust it, they go from 10 to 100, 10 to 100, and that causes a problem. So in those cases, I'll tell people to actually tighten their firing hand at the bottom fingers here, because at that point, I got nothing left to give. If I don't have much left to give, I can't tense up too much. In that case, the only place it can come from is from my body or pushing my arms or something else. But typically speaking, the gun behaves better also, which makes them relax, which makes them shoot faster and more accurate, right? So me personally, while I say wet noodle handshake, I personally grip pretty firmly with my firing hand because that's what makes me feel comfortable. Guys, the perfect exercise to play around with this is my sewing machine exercise. There's a link to the free lessons series. I would highly encourage you guys to sign up for that because that will give you all this stuff in much, much greater detail. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, comment, and if you enjoyed it, try it out and let me know what you think.